Despite the fact that Harley Davidson has had several bikes wearing the ST badge, ST standing for Sport Tourer, there is only one Sport Tourer in Harley's lineup. In fact, if you exclude Buells, there has only ever been one Sport Tourer in the lineup, and that is the new Pan America ST. The other bikes wearing the ST badge are really either power baggers like the CVO Road Glide ST or power cruisers like the Lowrider ST. But the new Pan America is a different animal altogether, as Harley has discovered what Ducati discovered decades ago with the Multistrada. If you take an adventure bike and stick 17-inch wheels and rubber on it, it makes an excellent and fast road touring bike. More comfortable than sport bike-based sport tourers like the Kawasaki Ninja 1000, and lighter and better handling than big traditional sport tourers like the Yamaha FJR 1300, these adventure sport tourers can haul you across the continent, then follow the sport bikes into the twisties and give a good account of themselves. And after Ducati stumbled on the formula, most big manufacturers now have one of these adventure sport tourers in their lineup with bikes like the Yamaha Tracer 900, Kawasaki Versys 1100, BMW F900 plus M and S 1000 XR, and the Honda NT 1100. Stay tuned for a full review of that last one coming soon to the channel. And so, probably realizing that most Harley riders are pavement only, Harley decided to morph the Pan America into the ST version by putting more sporty 17-inch wheels on it and slightly lowering the suspension. So, is the resulting bike worth checking out? Stay tuned, and if you're enjoying the content, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and sharing it with friends. So, how does the Pan America ST stack up to other Harleys and, more importantly, other sport tours performance-wise? It's the fastest Harley in the current lineup in a straight line or in the curves. And it is competitive with the big bore adventure style sport tours like the Ducati Multistrada and BMW S1000 XR. The star of the show with this bike is definitely the big 1252cc 60-degree Revolution Max V-twin, which is rated at a claimed 150 horsepower and 94 pound-feet of torque, and feels like it. Acceleration is right now and violent once you rev this thing out. This engine does not behave like big Harley Milwaukee 8s, which make their massive torque at low revs. The Rev Max hits its maximum torque peak at around 7,000 RPM and makes peak horsepower around 9,000 revs, and the way to run this motor is to let her rip. It doesn't have the same character as the traditional Harleys, which doesn't mean that it doesn't have character. If I were to compare this thing to other bikes, I'd compare it to KTM. It's very similar to the big twins KTM puts into the Super Dukes and Super Adventures. It barks and roars and gets up and goes hard. Power-wise, I had no complaints. You want to pass anything, just twist the throttle. You see a gap in traffic and want to get there at the speed of thought, just twist the throttle. You want to hit speeds that would torch your license if you were caught? Well, I wouldn't know because I didn't engage in such anti-social behavior. But you just twist the throttle, I heard. There's a lot of throttle twisting with this bike. Its 150 horsepower is less than competitors from Ducati, BMW, and KTM, but you would have to be ringing these bikes out down a long straightaway at the racetrack to notice. And the fact that this is a V-twin does mean that the power is suited for the real world. It pulled decently from lower down and has a nice broad torque curve. The power is kept in check by some pretty sophisticated electronics including rider modes, road, sport and rain, plus 2 modes customizable by the rider. The bike comes standard with lean sensitive traction control and ABS braking, which is electronically linked, as well as a slipper clutch, quick shifter, cruise control, wheelie control, hill hold, and tire pressure monitoring system. That's pretty much the whole suite of modern gizmos and is on par with other bikes in the class. However, there are some rough edges here. The quick shifter was not smooth, and several times I shifted from 4th to 5th, got on the gas, and felt the bike lurch back into 4th. Not great. Also, the tire pressure monitoring system was flashing a rear tire warning at me the entire time I had the bike, and I never did figure out what was wrong. The pressure in the back was higher than in the front, so I let out some air to normalize it, but the warning light stayed on. Maybe it needed to be reset manually somehow. The bike handled well and it was never an issue aside from me feeling anxiety every time I looked at the light. Harley is new to this sort of bike and the machine is impressive, but these are the kind of minor niggles that annoy owners. A high point with this bike is the handling, which is very sharp. Harley never made a Bronx 975, but this motorcycle is better than the Bronx would have been. It has way more power, is more comfortable, and the handling is tight. I've ridden a standard Pan America, but not hard enough to judge how much difference the lower suspension and smaller front wheel make. However, I can report that I like the suspension on this thing and the chassis is stiff and solid. Travel front and rear is 6.75 inches compared to the regular Pan America's 7.5, but this much travel still soaks up the bumps while not wallowing under hard braking or acceleration. Both the forks and the shock have manually adjustable compression and rebound damping while having electronically adjustable spring preload. Nice. Why can't the more expensive Harley baggers have this tech? The electronically adjustable suspension is only available in North America, the rest of the world gets manual adjustment. The Pan America ST rails the turns and is relatively light steering. It's still a 542-pound wet bike, not a super naked, but on a twisty road it corners and transitions from side to side well. It feels lighter than it is and steering is precise. And it is in the rear suspension department that this motorcycle packs its secret weapon, ride height adjustment. Truly, this is a pretty cool innovation in motorcycling. Because these types of bikes are based on adventure motorcycles with long travel suspension, they tend to have tall seats and may not be accessible to many riders. But this one is different. At a standstill, the rear shock lowers and makes it easier to get your feet on the ground. My wife Brooke, who is 5'7" or 169 centimeters, could actually flat foot this motorcycle, and I guarantee you she would not have been able to do this with any other bike in this class. The seat height is impressively low at 31.7 inches or 805 millimeters, and those are naked bike numbers, not adventure sport tourer numbers. The Pan America ST is a full inch lower than the Pan America Special, and that makes a significant difference to people of a certain height and inseam. If you are in the market for one of these but are hesitant because the seat height is an issue, this is your most attractive choice. Brakes are Brembo monoblock and radial mount and work great. I never had an issue with them, and while they were not superbike level powerful, they hauled the Pan America ST down quickly from some enthusiastic speeds. The Michelin Scrambler sport tires stuck to the pavement well and handled gravel and even a bit of dirt without issue. The phone connectable TFT dash was clearly visible in all light conditions and was easy to navigate, and I like that Harley didn't follow some of their usual idiosyncrasies with this bike. For example, the heated grips can be controlled with one button on the handlebar rather than having to navigate menus to turn on or adjust the grips, which is just annoying. Also, the turn signals are operated with one switch on the left handlebar rather than buttons on both handlebars like most Harleys. Operating a turn signal with your right thumb interferes with your grip on the throttle, which is why a single switch on the left side will always be better. Comfort is important on a touring motorcycle, and this is where Harley Davidson needs to take some pointers from other brands. Usually, if you have a model that comes in an off-road focused version and a more street focused version, the off-road version will have a lower screen to provide the rider with a better view of rocks and ruts they may encounter on a trail. The road version of the bike usually comes with a taller screen designed for better weather protection on pavement. However, somehow Harley designers managed to flip this and put a nice tall adjustable windscreen on a Pan America Special while sticking an inferior and tiny one on the ST. Given that its mission is to tour long distances at high speeds, this bike needs the taller adjustable windscreen. Other than the low windscreen, I have no real complaints with the comfort of the motorcycle. I like the seating position and felt that it provided plenty of legroom for my 33-inch inseam. I wasn't crazy about the seat and my butt was feeling it after a few hundred kilometers, but seats are subjective and can be easily swapped out, so I never harp on about them too much. Besides, the beauty of these types of motorcycles is that when your butt gets really sore, the pegs which are located under the seat allow the rider to stand up and have a good stretch on a long trip. Generally, my feeling is that with a taller windshield, this will be a comfortable motorcycle for a variety of heights and body types. You may be sitting on that seat for lengthy periods of time too, because the tank is rather large at 5.6 gallons or 21 liters and is good for 250 miles or 400 kilometers according to the bike's computer. However, this is very optimistic and assumes that you will be riding like a sane person and not mashing the throttle every chance you get. And this motor is just too much fun not to mash the throttle every chance you get. Take this bike on the twisty roads where you can pop it into fourth and go blasting down every straightaway, and you'll get nowhere near 400 kilometers. That's the price you pay for having fun on a motorcycle, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Looks are a subjective thing, and in this genre of motorcycle shouldn't really matter. Form is supposed to follow function here, and damn how pretty it is. The Pan America has been built to resemble the Road Glide a bit, and I'm generally not a fan of the Road Glide. I like the Street Glide better, but I have to say I like the looks of the ST model better than the standard Pan America. I like my adventure bikes thin and resembling rally bikes, something like my Yamaha Tenere 700, and the Pan America adventure bikes don't have that look. For a sport tourer, however, a more muscular look is appropriate, and the Pan America ST is less ugly than a lot of its sport touring competitors. Looking at you, Honda. The headlight has grown on me a bit, and everything behind the headlight actually looks pretty nice. The tank is shapely and has a bit of a retro vibe, the exposed parts of the frame look cool, and the proportions of this motorcycle are well balanced. It's not overly bulbous or insectoid looking like some of its competitors. And how does it compare with other bikes on price? Not bad, coming in at $20,000 US and $25,000 Canadian, just under the Ducati Multistrada V4 and BMW S1000 XR. Although the Kawasaki Versys 1100 is still less expensive in the States and way less expensive in Canada. It is less powerful though. Generally, this bike is in line with its competition, though I do not like that I'd have to replace the windshield right away. And is the same price as the Pan America Special, which has a nicer windshield and more protection in case it goes down off-road. Why isn't the ST less expensive given that it has less expensive equipment on it? So what's the verdict? Harley built a very fast and well-handling sport tourer here, which is worth a look. The fundamentals of the motorcycle, things like the engine, frame, and suspension are strong. Harley's inexperience shows more in the peripheral equipment used on the bike. Things like the windshield, quick shifter, and finicky tire pressure monitoring system are minor annoyances, but you don't find such annoyances on other bikes in the class. However, Harley redeems itself with the innovative ride height adjustment. It's not a must-have for me, but for someone who needs a lower saddle, it might be the most important feature on the bike. All the gizmos in the world mean nothing if you're not feeling confident because you're perched on a too tall saddle. So fundamentally a good motorcycle but sporting a few rough edges, the Pan America ST is the most fun Harley to ride on pavement. If I had to have only one motorcycle and it had to be a Harley, I'd go for the Pan America Special because I like riding off-road. But if you ride only pavement, then the ST is your bike. It'll smoke the other Harleys in a straight line or in the curves, and it's a suitably modern bike with performance competitive in its class. It's more sport than tourer and is a bit rough around the edges, but cracking open the throttle will distract you from some of its shortcomings. This is a Harley that really rocks and should be the bike the company demos to the critics who call Harleys slow and archaic. Truly, the Pan America family consists of all the best motorcycles Harley builds. They're not the best Harleys because they don't have the traditional look and feel, but wind one up on a straightaway or run it through the curves and you might start to debate with yourself about how important tradition really is. These bikes are more fun than any Milwaukee 8 bike. I could see myself touring on a Pan America. But what do you think? Pan America or a Milwaukee 8? Pan America Special or Pan America ST? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Ride safe, check out some of these other videos you might be interested in, and may the spokes be with you.